Well, hello everybody, and welcome back to week 2 of Alfred Hitchcock Unrevealed or Decoded or something. We're not
Nice.
making up names. Thank you. I'm Lucas. You've seen me before. Zack is also here. He feels amazing right now. But more importantly than us, we have the #1 podcast superfan, Michael Campbell, is here.
I like podcast super fan. Like he's just the #1 super fan of the concept of podcasts. And he doesn't speak. By the way, this is the Zag. We were talking before the show. He was preparing a Zag for us. I think it might be he's not going to say a word the whole episode.
He has told me every conversation we've had about this episode that he was not going to speak and only listen. So he is living up to that so far.
Okay. This is
great.
All right,
moving on.
Well. I will talk.
All right, moving on. Last movie you logged on Letterboxd. Zack Ford, hit us with the last movie you logged on Letterboxd.
The last movie I logged on Letterboxd was, I forgot, like 5 seconds after I look at it. On the Rocks. Sofia Coppola's new movie that
I love Alfred.
Okay. I missed that joke, and I feel bad about myself that I do not understand.
That's the name of the subtitle to Arthur 2.
Okay. Yeah. On the Rocks? Oh, okay. Anyways, On the Rocks, Sofia Coppola's Apple Plus movie that I got an Apple subscription just to watch because a trial was just like too overwhelming for me to even think about. So I just just subscribe me. It's okay. It is a lovely movie. I think it gets dismissed as being like light and just kind of charming, but I think there is some deeper stuff there about parental. I don't want to say trauma. It's not really about trauma, but the complexity of parental child connections and the history that kind of never goes away, and affects how you view your own adulthood and relationships, kind of through that lens created by her parents. Bill Murray's doing great Bill Murray things, and Rashida Jones is kind of the more straight man in a way. Is also, I think because it's such a straight performance, but just the fact that she can play off of Bill Murray so well, as far as being that back and forth person to make his jokes work more, but also just how she really lives that chemistry and that history between them. You can just see it in her face, and how she reacts is remarkable as well. So I think they're both great performances, good movie. Next.
Yeah, I mean, I have not seen this yet. I am going to have to steal your Apple TV Plus subscription to get in there and watch this. So that'll be fun.
Yeah,
you did just.
I'll have to do a trial.
Yeah, definitely steal that.
Definitely hype for it. This got sort of like mediocre reviews when it first came out, but I think it's sort of started to turn the tide towards good and really good. So that's what Zack did. He rated it highly, which is always just. I mean, that's a fucking. I don't know what to think of that.
I mean, it's a must-watch, and you put it to the top of your watch list because my praise means more than anything else. I do think that it kind of got not buried, but as far as media coverage, got a little overwhelmed by Borat. I think they should have changed a different week. It came out the same week as Borat and The Witches and Rebecca, the remake, which somehow I feel like also got more coverage. So it seemed On the Rock on a different weekend, maybe.
It's on Apple TV Plus, a service that no one has and no one cares about.
Hey, rude! I'm not nobody.
Okay, but
I'm not. I didn't care about it until.
That's right. There's like 6. We've had this discussion before. There's like 7 movies on the entire streaming service. It's not exactly the one that's going to draw a lot of an audience.
And somehow still pretty hard to find those 7 movies.
I know I remember I had it for Greyhound, and you have to scroll. It's the only website in existence that you have to just scroll down a large list of things to reach the thing you want.
There's 7 movies. There's Snoopy in outer space, my friend, goes to space. There's also Fraggle Rock and New Fraggle Rock. You got the hints. You got my pal Linus and Lucy and Snoopy, and you got Bill Murray singing songs in Mexico. Spoilers.
All right, now that Zack has sufficiently plugged the Apple TV Plus service, Mr. Michael Campbell, what is the last movie you logged on Letterboxd?
Yeah, so I watched Trick or Treat. Yeah, that's anthology, like Halloween horror movie. It's real interconnected stories you see people from in the first scene, and then you see it in the background later on in the movie. That type of stuff. Real good stuff going on. If you break the tradition of Halloween, spoiler alert, you may or may not get killed. That's basically the premise of the movie. I actually really love it. I watch it every Halloween. It's really fun. It's only like 70 minutes long, so I definitely recommend for, adding it to your Halloween playlist. Yeah, it's really good. It's got the classic monster Sam, who is just an icon. He's so good. I just want to cuddle him up, but you probably stab me.
That's Pumpkin Head Boy, right?
Yeah.
That's all I know. Okay.
He's got like the lollipop kit, but it's like actually slits throats or something. So.
As the
have you seen it, right? Or
I have not, but I was going to say, as the person who has gotten me into a lot of horror franchises and horror movies as a whole, is this one you think that I would enjoy?
Yeah, well, there's also number 2 coming out, supposed to be coming out in the next couple of years or so, and yeah, I think you definitely dig it. Like, it's got some actors, there's some like sort of, it's real funny at times, like a real funny comedy. Yeah, there's some cool kills, some cool scares, some kids you hate.
All right, I mean, this basically
I will never watch it because they're too lazy to spell the O. If you're too lazy to spell O-R and you have to do apostrophe R, then you're not worth my time.
There's an original movie. I think it's from the 80s or so, 90s, called Trick or Treat. So I think they did that to be different. But
yeah,
also,
exactly. They were trying not to plagiarize.
There's another way that I think they could have been different, which is not name it fucking Trick or Treat. You're still naming the same goddamn movie. You're not fooling me. Also, Michael, why are you watching Halloween movies? It's November 14th. It's the middle of November.
Yeah.
It's actually November
Hey.
4th. So don't listen to him, listeners. Don't listen to him.
I mean, Trick or Treat just sounds like a anthology version of Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, which is awesome. So I definitely feel like this is something I should check out.
I guess you could say that.
Michael and I both love Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Hey, Lucas.
Yes.
Hey, Lucas. What'd you watch?
The last film I watched was part of a Robert Zemeckis watch through. So it was Forrest Gump, which is
sounds about what.
Yeah, it's a very white movie. It is. I think it's a really interesting film though, because this movie initially comes out and it's this huge Oscar play. This is the best movie of the year. And I think over time, people have really soured on that idea and said, it's not the best movie of the year. And I don't think it is. I'm not going to stand here and make an argument for Forrest Gump being the best movie of the year. I do think the movie gets a lot of flack for things it doesn't deserve. I think Tom Hanks is really charming. And I think that character as a whole does not work if you don't have Captain Empathy, Captain Charming Tom Hanks playing it. Like, I think in almost anyone else's hands, that character is unbearable. I also think one of the worst takes to come out of Forrest Gump is that Jenny is somehow the villain of this movie, which conveniently ignores the fact that like Jenny was an abused child and had like a really shitty life. So it feels like we're like blaming Jenny for not being consistent throughout her life because her life was really rough and really hard at times. It's just a really bad take overall. I know Zack would like to jump in because I'm pretty sure he agrees with me on this. It's just a bad take.
Yeah, it's the sad boy, I'm a good guy, why doesn't all the women love me point of view? Because
Exactly.
they're like, Forrest's such a good guy. Jenny owes it to him to love him, like she owes him anything. She's not entitled to love Forrest. That's it's a very misogynist perspective to look at the film. Like in real life, that Jenny's not gonna fall in love or have sex with Jenny. Come on, it was already they were living the dream by giving them a chance at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think she does love him as a friend, and I think that in some ways the movie is complicated by the fact that he keeps trying to push beyond what she wants him to be in her life. Like, she wants him to be this really close friend, and I think I think he just wants a lot more, and the movie doesn't ever grapple with the fact that maybe he shouldn't get that and has to be okay with it.
Yeah, and we should just not view things from a male entitlement, lens. Yeah. That thinks women need to offer themselves up to a man because he was quote unquote nice.
There are some weird sexual politics in this movie, which includes the early scene in the film where basically Forrest gets into school because his mom sleeps with people. There's some weird stuff going on in this movie.
That's how I got into school.
Yeah.
That's the That's the American way. That's why you went to a shitty ass school. Your mom wasn't willing to do what was needed. My mom actually does not listen to this podcast. She learned from my previous podcast that there's nothing for her to gain from this. So I can say those jokes.
Michael, what's your thoughts on Forrest Gump?
I've been on that island for forever. I just feel like Jenny is not a villain. She's a complicated character who has flaws. She also has good things to give to Forrest. Like you're saying, she was abused as a child. That's gonna sort of mess you up. And also just the time period is weird. And also Forrest is like in and out of her life, so it's I don't know. It's not like your normal love story. And I guess that's the point. But also like you're saying, Forrest wants more than she can give. But also she gave him the greatest gift of all in Little Forrest Jr. So she's a complicated character. It's okay to be like, maybe she did play with his feelings or not. I don't know. That's up to interpretation. But she's not some overarching villain. She's not Thanos in this movie. Let's relax a bit.
This is not to say the movie is perfect. There's a lot of other issues.
Absolutely
not. That is not the one to.
It's very goofy at times. The entire Forrest happens to be with every famous moment in history is a very goofy premise that does not hold up as a serious Oscar movie level. Oh, he was randomly doing a dance and then Elvis saw it. That stuff is. It's a fun concept, but it doesn't necessarily hold up to scrutiny. But I think it's a very engaging movie. It's like 2.5 hours. And I found that I was not sitting there like, oh my God, can you please move on? I found it very engaging. I think that, it's really hard when you watch, Tom Hanks is just a very engaging presence on screen. And so you want to watch Tom Hanks, especially 90s Tom Hanks when he was just absolutely killing it. You want to watch 2 hours of that. And also, again, to the Jenny thing, and you just made the point, which is at the end, we're supposed to see the relationship between him and his son as this really beautiful, pure thing where they really care about each other. And there's not the acceptance of their differences is really clear. So calling Jenny, who's the reason that exists, the villain is just a bizarre take. If you watch the movie, you have to create almost an alternate version of the movie to make a case that Jenny is the ultimate villain or something.
Hey, because of Forrest Gump, because of the fact that he did so much for history, we were able to have a great movie about a British guy who is the only one to remember the lyrics written by Forrest Gump. I spent 5 minutes trying to word that joke properly in my head. I'm still not very happy with it. It could have been better constructed.
Oh yeah,
absolutely.
I still I was gonna say I still cry. I cry. I get emotional at the end.
Absolutely.
It doesn't. It's like I said, it's a long movie. You go on a whole journey through decades of people. You're gonna get emotional at the end. And and who isn't entertained at seeing Forrest just pop up in these random historic moments? It's a fun concept that doesn't really take into account the issues of some of the things that Forrest would be doing, which you can say what you want, but also it's fun. It's a fun watch.
Yeah, absolutely. So this week we're going to take a small diversion from the typical plan. We're not going to move on to the main film yet because we have a special email from a fan to read on the podcast this week. So I have an email here that we've been sitting on.
Yeah, why do we have any fans?
I don't know. Zack tries to kill all the fans off every week, and somehow they keep coming back. Zack tries to murder them. Yeah, Zack is a murderer. All right, so our email comes to us from Marmite Rules with 7 Z's at koalamail.com. And it's
Koala Mail? What place in the world would have a email called Koala Mail?
Clearly it's China.
Wherever Sing takes place.
Where does Sing take place?
The Opera House? I don't know. It's on the Opera House.
Wherever Matthew McConaughey isn't he on the voice of the koala?
Matthew McConaughey recording his lyrics.
Of course he does. Have you ever looked at a koala and now wished that you spoke in Matthew McConaughey's voice?
That's true.
I want to see a koala sell Lincoln's.
Eucalypti.
Matthew McConaughey won his Oscar. He's like, what do I do next? Voice a koala hosting a singing competition, baby.
All right. So the email, I remember it distinctly. It was December 24th, 2019, and I sat down next to my bed. I decided to talk to Santa for the first time in quite a while. I'm not someone to ask for gifts for Christmas, but this was different. The year had not been too great, and I was feeling a little down going into 2020. So I asked Santa and asked Santa and asked Santa. For the majority of 2020, I thought Santa had ignored me. I really did. But then my request was granted. The Christmas gift I so desperately wanted was another podcast starring two white guys who didn't know how technology worked. And I'm so very thankful you guys came along to answer my prayer. I really do not know what I'd do without your guys' podcast. It's what we need in 2020. Kind regards. And it is our biggest fan, Michael, who is just a wonderful human being. And we will definitely be sending some merch too if we stop being cheap.
But thank you. A Disney princess piano through the mail to our biggest fan, Michael Campbell.
I hope he lives close to you in the United States. Otherwise, the postage for that is going to be worth more.
I'm just going to throw it in. I'm going to throw it in the ocean. Just hope for the best.
Just wrap the baby. Send the baby over.
I think you should tie it to a koala and shoot it with a catapult.
That's real complex. I don't have that in me right now.
I don't have to go find a catapult or a koala.
I barely had the energy to take it. That joke and have a response to it, let alone actually execute a koala catapult.
All right.
I can't say the word catapult.
Let's talk about energy, Zach, because we're going to move on to our 1940 Alfred Hitchcock feature film, which is Rebecca. Zach is getting ready. We have to start with, of course, the award-winning segment, Zach's plot summary. Zach, hit it.
So they're at a hotel. They're at some place like Monte Carlo. Maybe? Yeah. Okay. You're just slapping your jaw. I take that as a yes. Ooh, that was bad in my own earbuds. Anyway, so Monte Carlo with the unknown main character and her it's not mistress, so she's not fucking her.
Companion, I think is what they say.
Yeah,
she's the companion to a widow.
She's the companion to this widow that keep care of her. And then what's his face? Mr. Rebecca shows up. He's a big player. The old lady she's companion is like, this guy, I need to be friends with him and talk with him because that means that people look upon you nicely, that you are running with the higher classes if you're just social with the richer people. And so through that meets the companion. They start lying about tennis lessons, which is just rude, and going on long card trips, and nothing sparks romance like just card trips to nowhere through conversation and probably some fucking. And so they decide to marry, and they go to Mandalay, the place where all your dreams come true. And Mandalay is haunted or not haunted, spiritually haunted by his he's a widower. So his dead wife, there you go, Rebecca. How'd she die? We don't know till the end of the movie because that's how movies work. So anyways, she's feeling a little like that the ghost of Rebecca is kind of hanging over her marriage, not the literal ghost, but the metaphorical ghost kind of hanging over her marriage. She's worried that all the other employees of the estate are so tied up in how beautiful and great Rebecca was that she'll never live up to it. Shenanigans happen. There's a boathouse. They discover boats. At some point, they think Mr. Rebecca killed her. And they have to solve the mystery. Rebecca disappears, or not Rebecca, the main character disappears for a little bit while they solve all this. She reappears as Mandalay burns down because the caretaker that had definitely had something for Rebecca, burn it down out of the misery and stress of finding out that she died. I don't know. Anyways, Mandalay burns down. That's it. You don't even need to watch the movie now. I did a pretty perfect job. You got everything. I emoted the same emotions. That was by far my worst one.
Yeah, spoiler by the way for the people.
Yeah. Spoiler from
no, that's the show. It's all spoilers. Don't listen to this if you haven't seen Rebecca.
Yeah. I just didn't know if we were doing a non-spoiler section, and then.
No,
but I guess we just jump right in.
No. I will literally open every episode with a major spoiler of the film going forward. That's the new goal.
We should maybe like say something at the beginning of the show. Hey, this is a, all out.
It's a 1940 movie. If you haven't seen it at this point, you probably aren't going to see it.
That would require.
If I say a spoiler, does it count because I don't actually make sense or have words that can be heard clearly?
I'm convinced I watched a different movie, so you did a good
job. I probably watched the same movie Michael is convinced he watched, though.
If you've seen the trailer of Rebecca, you basically know what happens.
That's
a joke for 8 people.
Wow. Thank you, everyone. All right. Let's get started with last episode. We talked about how Robert and I was kind of the classic Hitchcock male lead, and then he's very charming and very charismatic, and you really like him. And I think Laurence Olivier is really interesting in the canon of Hitchcock lead males because he's obviously an incredible actor. He obviously looks very charming, but the performance is somewhat cold because the character requires him. He's not as like out there and exuberant as you would see the traditional Hitchcock male lead. And I think this is kind of an interesting choice for Hitchcock. He comes to America, he brings Olivier, this really famous actor, along with him, and then he almost never works with an Olivier type again. So this is kind of a sort of it's a very unique film in Hitchcock's filmography for a lot of reasons.
It's very much the like transition from England to America. So you got like, the one of the most British just appealed actors that were around the time, but had a mainstream Hollywood audience as well. So it really, I think, helped take his tone, the Hitchcock tone, into the American audiences. He was a good I forgot all words. I might only my whole language might be down to 20 words right now. So we're gonna go on to Michael, who's gonna speak very intelligently about what you're saying. Go.
Yeah, Laurence Olivier is definitely an actor. Yeah, what do you mean by like Laurence Olivier type though? Like, how, like what do you mean by that?
Oh, I mean,
British.
I think he is. He has the talent of the acting lead you want in a Hitchcock movie. He has a look you'd want, but he doesn't. He's not as charismatic or talkative as you typically see in a Hitchcock movie, where the male lead kind of is less knowledgeable of the overall plot and the tragedy or the mystery. Typically, the male lead is the guy who doesn't know what's going on and is kind of just like charming his way through the situations as he tries to figure out. In this movie, you kind of flip it on his head. Fontaine plays more of the traditional male lead in that she's the one who's kind of trying to figure everything out. And he's kind of the colder, more reserved performance. And the guy who also just knows more about what the overall tragedy, what the mystery of Rebecca, of what's happening at Manderley is.
I would say that also comes with it being by far his most romantic movie, or his most like true just a romance. So what he needs from his leads is naturally going to be different. Laurence Olivier is, is a more theatrical actor. He can pull that romantic side, I think, a little stronger than Cary Grant and Jimmy Stewart. Now there's romances in there, but they're not the focus of the movie, or they're not dealt with, as much kind of sweep and melodrama as it does with Rebecca.
Me too, up until like marriage, up until their house gets burned down. But yeah. Like that movie, like The Woman in Black. I swear, like they just took that look of the housemaid from me and just like, she was creeping me out, man. I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, wait, you're trying to say someone was inspired by a Hitchcock movie? Or never would have guessed.
Shocker. Yeah, no, I haven't seen the film The Woman in Black, but I have seen the trailer, and yes, I can see where you get the connection to Danvers. Yeah, Danvers is really creepy. She's a really weird presence, and she's just like really harsh at all times. Like, Joan Fontaine is like trying to be nice to everybody. Like her whole thing going in is like trying to be nice, trying to be understanding, not trying to cause a problem. Like she's not throwing her weight around or trying to like take over. And Danvers treats her doing almost nothing as like trying to take over the household, trying to push Rebecca out. Like she's like so nice, and Danvers is just not. having any of it.
Yeah, this was my second time watching it, and
Hey, Sarah.
Hey, buddy. From my original watch, my memory would have been that she was much more kind of manipulative in a way and a little more mysterious, but like watching this is she shows her cards like right away. She's just like immediately like, I like Rebecca, you don't need to be here. It was kind of the physical manifestation of the kind of Rebecca spirit hanging over that it all was kind of captured, and how Miss Danvers welcomed what are we gonna call her, the woman, Mrs. What's her last name?
She's the second Lady De Winter.
Yeah, just call her.
We'll call her Lady De Winter.
Yeah,
sure.
Okay. John Fontaine. We'll call
John Fontaine. That still works. That works. Absolutely.
Yeah. But I think also like there is a little bit of in the back of your mind of just like, is she just super? Is Danvers just like super protective of Maxim? Like you don't immediately go, oh, she's in love with like Rebecca. Like so. That's also a part of like you figuring that out. Like there's, like you said, I mean, she's also cold, but she's also, I mean, I think the turning point is like the dress where she tells Joe Fontaine to wear the dress. That's sort of the turning point, because before then, I think there was like, I think the breaking of like the statue thing had to come up with her. She wasn't like, super upset or I mean, she didn't even force that to happen. So you're just like, yeah, she's pretty cold. It's the new lady coming in. Is she a gold digger, that type of thing. And then as the movie goes on, you realize like, no, that's a lot more than that. So
yeah. She doesn't have like actually too much to do for a while. Like she's there as a presence. She's there to be an antagonist, because they really the standing being creepy, because they really save it up. You still like not understand, but like are freaked out by this character enough that by the time they want her to be a focal point, the last 3 minutes of the movie, and she's just like looking real creepy and manic in the windows as Mandalay burns down, it's still really effective and still makes sense, plot wise.
And she was open about like showing number 2 like the West Wing. She's like, you just could have just asked me. She was showing the big bed, the wardrobe, and all that stuff. So you're like, okay, she's opening up. She's warming to number 2. Nope.
The movie does a really good job of kind of, we learn about things as Joan Fontaine does. So she comes to Mandalay and she has no idea what's going on. She doesn't understand the dynamics. She doesn't understand what everybody's motivations are. And we kind of learn, like we're in her perspective. She's very much the perspective character in that we're following her and going, I don't get what's going on with Danvers. Why is she seems kind of nice in moments? Maybe she's being helpful. Like you get kind of like the whole roller coaster, and then she's trying to figure out why is her husband, who seemed so nice and friendly, and when they were in France, is now like acting so cold and so harsh and disappearing. And then they've got like the random brother and sister, and then the guy that's showing up that nobody understands. She's just kind of thrown in this weird position where she's left on her own all the time. And then, but also then gets exposed to all these different people, but she has no context for understanding who these people are or what they're doing there.
Yeah, there's never a sense of comfort. She's always, outside her zone. She never gets to fully adapt, and in a way that's the lingering, curse of number 1. Once again, she's not an actual spirit, actual ghost, but just that lingering, how she kind of. Number 1 was able to manipulate everyone around her, to believe it and control Mandalay. That makes anyone else trying to replace her impossible. She's controlling the strings even after her death, because that's the footprint she was able to have.
Yeah, because everything in the house just reminds Maxim of like number 1. So type of thing. And obviously we'll find out why that is, or like why. I don't know. Yeah, like you said, there's just a shadow lingering over, and there is one part where number 2 does get like sort of comfortable and like sort of takes control and be like, I want this, I want to do this, and then but it didn't really last too long.
That leads to the dress incident, because that's when Mrs. Danvers like you're getting too comfortable, and it always will come back. She's never able to overcome that shadow.
Yeah.
Until the house burns down. That's her freedom. That's where she's able to form her own relationship they're on with Laurence Olivier.
She's like, so I can now finally build my own 50-bedroom house.
I think they just lived in the boathouse.
I don't think they went and lived in the boathouse. Just a heads up. I think they probably went back to wherever they were in France in that fancy place and not in the boathouse. Yeah. But I think Manderley as a location is just such a wonderful Hitchcock location, and that just it has this really regal, large spreading. It's got that classic English manor house feel where you can have all these different rooms. So you get like you can imagine Hitchcock getting to play with this set and being like, "This is awesome! I can have the cool dining room and the stairs, and then some weird room like I can have a wing that was shut off because it used to be Rebecca's wing, and then you also get all like the trees around the overgrowth. So you get to kind of play with like the house is a representation of like the rot of what's happened in post Rebecca. Like the house hasn't changed because he hasn't been able to move on, even though he has the new wife. And there's always like the weird stuff. You get like the weird guy down in the boathouse, and you sort of don't really know what's going on with him. And you also like there's people coming and going in the way that you can with like this really large house without everybody knowing about it. It's just this great location for Hitchcock to play with and set up his like weird, almost mystical imprint of Rebecca on everything, and it just kind of permeates the entire house because it hasn't changed.
Yeah, there's literally one scene where a dude is just chilling in the window, and it's like this is a normal occurrence in this house. Like he's just like patting the dog, good old Jasper, and just chilling in the window. And Danvers is like, "Oh yeah, that's cousin Eddie. He does that sometimes."
And it's the magic of having an estate as your setting, which is where you can make essentially a single house. It's much more of a full world in a way, a world of characters. There's still plenty of characters to be around there and plenty of rooms. And I think there's some level of cynicism in how most of the estate is designed. There seems a little bit of satirizing the big open spaces. It all just kind of seems like unnecessary. It's there for show. Like even I think Manderley is kind of, or not Manderley. So even Laurence Olivier seems kind of like over it in a way, ready for it to burn, quote unquote, to where the only like safe zone, the place of comfort is the library, the place of intelligence, the only place that wasn't fully open and kind of unused, the place that was filled to the brim with books and furniture and life in a way was the one place of of safety. And the one place that probably Rebecca didn't have her fingers on.
There's one lesson to learn from here. It's you feel safe in the library, go to the library. I mean,
yeah. As long as you ignore the guy masturbating in the corner of the computer, it's a very safe place to be.
It is shocking. That is the shockingly common occurrence in libraries that you think they would do a better job of stopping, because it's going to become a joke in like 20 movies if they just don't stop it.
Probably already is. So we talked a bit about Joan Fontaine as a character because that's her character name, but her performance, I think, is very remarkable. I think as, on face level, as a vocal performance, it's very kind of classical in its way. It's still, the reason my wife doesn't watch
Can you do more of that?
1960s, speak like the rest of the show, like this.
It's the mid-Atlantic accent.
You speak your fragility. But I think the way she acts with her posture is it's truly remarkable. That's where she's kind of wearing her class in a way. She's just a little more slouched, a little more like head forward, to where she never seems fully comfortable in any situation she's in as far as talking to people outside her comfort zone. And I think that's a lot of characterization just in how she sits with her body. That's like, it's very actorly thing to do now, especially it's like method acting kind of became a thing because living it in your soul. But I think for the 1940s, not as common. It is always like you always have good posture, you always project your voice, and that's how you act. But I think this was a little more unique in how she presented herself.
I think she's really good at playing like naive. She plays naive really well. She comes in. This is clearly this world of upper class. Like the world that he lives in is unique to her. I think it's hinted at in the beginning. It's maybe not going to do as much. She was not particularly high class. I don't think her family was particularly well off. She even talks about her dad dying and having to get a job related to that. That clearly indicates that she was not of the upper class, of the aristocracy. And she just plays that really well. She has this naivete and this lack of understanding, but also this really like this sweetness. She's like, she really does go into every situation not knowing what's going to happen and thinking that if she's nice to people, then people will be nice to her and like her back. And you see that like she really doesn't know how to deal with Danvers because she's never been in a situation where she's not just nice and polite and people are instantly just nice and polite back to her. So like she's completely thrown by this idea that this woman who has never met her, doesn't know anything about her, would just have this instant animosity to her. And just you can watch it throw her. And she even keeps trying as the scenes go on until she like reaches the breaking point and she says, I'm the Mrs. De Winter. And then like it even ends up going back on that because that's just clearly not who she is. She can try to do that in a moment of anger, but it's not who she is. And yeah, her whole like naive, sweet, honest, polite thing is just completely thrown by the inhabitants of Manderley.
I think,
yeah, I mean, and she can hold a tennis racket, and that's basically, if you can do that, you just get cast in a Hitchcock movie. So yeah,
this is a very anti-tennis movie though for Hitchcock loving tennis. They're like, fuck. They even say they don't like tennis. They go, "Do you even really like playing tennis?" They go, "No, we're gonna drive in a car instead." How is driving through the middle of nowhere in the countryside more exciting than a nice competitive game of tennis? You can fall in love with tennis. There's balls, there's handles.
Like get a point or something like that. Like, have they seen the movie in Stone Coast and I mean, come on, it fucking works.
I know. They acted like tennis was only for like the old woman, like the snobbiest of snobs. Okay, I grew up a poor boy, middle class boy in Lorain, Ohio, in a poor city, where I had to pay for my own tennis lessons by working part time at a movie theater. It is not just for rich people; it's also for those that just like to have a sport they can shine in because they're not very good at baseball. I do want to go back to Joan Fontaine a little bit for the next hour. I think the naivete that you're discussing is not only important in the characterization, but I think also important in the chemistry developing between the two, because that's what Olivier is, attracted to. It's something that was a different vibe than he was getting with Rebecca or with number one. So that his whole, I think, attraction came from her being from a different world. It's not, he was so, I think, done with that Mandalay-esque, life and atmosphere that this was refreshing to have her, wide-eyed, kind of perky and nervous, individual well into his life. And I feel like that the chemistry really, works, and they're so different people and such different performers, but I think you can see the attraction. They're also just like damn hot, so of course it works.
Well, yeah, I was gonna say, like, I sort of was struggling with the romance a bit at first, like, because as you guys have said, like, Olivier is very cold to her, and I'm like at a certain point, what is she like seeing him? But I do love the way that it sort of wraps up and he's fully like in love with her. I bought that at the end. It's just first half, like, he was very cold. It was just anything she did, he was just like, oh, why would you do such a thing to offend me? Blah blah blah. Like, I don't know, he just turned into a French Italian person.
Literally Count Dracula. I mean, I think
you're going to talk like that, and I'm going to talk in my 1940s actor's voice, and we have a number one podcast.
And I'm going to mute both of you and talk about the movie. I think it makes sense, though. I think he talks about in the film about how, like, Rebecca was very forward and very controlling and very demanding. So I think that
the perfect wife,
yeah. I think she was. I think in some ways, when he meets Joan Fontaine, part of it is he's really guarded and worried about ending up in another situation with another person who he would think initially was the right person and then would very quickly realize is wrong. And I think he also just didn't know how to respond to somebody who was so earnest and like out in the open emotionally. Like, she is out there. She's just like, hey, I like you. Hey, let's go. Like, there's no game. She's not trying to play a game. She's not trying to pull some trick and like tell him one thing now and something
or anything like that. No,
she's just there. She's just, hey, I like spending time with you. Can we go for a drive? Like, there's a purity to her that I think he doesn't even know how to respond to initially.
And the reason why it probably works so much in the ending is, a purposeful result of, how what they're trying to evolve that character of Laurence Olivier, because as you're saying, he was still, in a way not over Rebecca, like she was still overhanging him. And her death, because he was still feeling, the partial blame for it too, as well. That was still hanging over him, so he was never able to be his true self in the welcoming. So once they find the body, he gets, he's deemed innocent of her murder, and the house burns down. All that is kind of washing away everything that was holding him back from fully embracing, that relationship and moving on. So then that romance really starts to blossom in the last 5 seconds with the sexiest kiss on screen. It's real sexy.
So you could say almost that the burning of Manderley is the destruction of everything Rebecca, like the Rebecca cloud that had been hanging over his life.
I guess you could say it was a metaphor, maybe. I don't know.
I don't know, Michael.
The whole movie is one metaphor. It's a metaphor for life and humanity.
Are you saying that Hitchcock movies are somewhat more than just what's on the surface?
Not all. I think this one is. Not some of them are pretty surface, I think.
Let's go back to the so Rebecca and the concept of what happened with the death of Rebecca. So initially in this film, we are told that he had a previous wife. She was named Rebecca. She died. Or not.
Yeah. It's
what?
Like she drowned in like a boating accident is sort of what they, because I remember that one dude at dinner like, oh, do you sell? You shouldn't. And then it's like, everyone's like, dude, the dude's wife died in a sailing accident. Why would you say that?
He's the real idiot of the dinner party who just brings up the uncomfortable subject. He's like, yes.
He's like, so what does your wife do, Maxim? Like, she's literally sitting next to him. He's like, and Maxim's like, she sketches sometimes. Like
that's a really insulting scene.
I know a lot about my wife.
It's like, I've spent a grand total of 12 minutes with her. No, but then it's
on her own. So, it's
she hangs out on the stage. She takes care of the stage. That's what she's into. She's into Manderley.
So as we go on, characters in the film start to give us the indication that Rebecca's death may not have been as cut and dry as, oh, she was out sailing and a boating accident happened. And so there is an accusation leveled at Laurence Olivier that he had killed his wife, and they go into a whole inquiry. They find the boat, they find her body, and then there's this weird part of the movie where it's revealed that her body was in the boat and not washed up on shore, that was buried in the grave.
So it takes like a sharp left turn. So yeah,
it does really take it is very much like it's weird being at Manderley with Rebecca's spirit hanging over this, and then it's just like really hard turn, and then they start talking, and
so Maxim explains then the whole scene of Maxim of like when they're in the cabin or whatever, and that's when the twist of the movie is revealed, after they find out that a body was Rebecca's.
Right. And then the guy we had seen earlier, who was described by Danvers as Rebecca's favorite cousin. This is where the movie gets really weird.
I think it's her real cousin. It's the 40s. I think they're still fucking.
They're very much fucking, because they literally talk about seeing...
It's his baby.
Right.
Yeah.
No.
That's what I interpreted it. Well, I interpreted it as he thought it was going to be...
Yeah, he thought it was his baby.
It was going to be his, yeah.
Right. And then so... Maxime reveals
could be a cover, though.
Maxime reveals he did sort of accidentally kill Rebecca in a fight. Like, it wasn't intentional, but she ended up... She had led to her death. So then his way of... Right. His way of dealing this is to put her in a boat and drill holes in it from the inside in a way that causes it to sink, which, again, is a ridiculously complicated way of trying to hide the body.
Because even if he didn't, it's not his fault that she died. That's still a shitty thing. Like, he should still be probably going to prison. He still hit her body in a fucking boat.
It's suicide. Way down here.
We're all good.
And the movie is resolved because they end up going to the doctor Rebecca had been seeing in London and found out that she wasn't carrying her favorite cousin's child, which is a weird sentence to say in the first place. She had cancer and was dying anyway. And sort of the final reveal of this film is that the inquiry lets Maxim off to go be happy with Joan Fontaine.
Well, also, she was using the name Danvers.
She was using. There's a lot of. there's a lot of weird stuff going on. And because they rule it as a suicide because she had cancer. They rule that she got
plausible. Like that's all they were looking for. Yeah.
Right. It is plausible she could have committed suicide by getting on a boat and drowning herself, which on what planet is a suicidal person going to get in a boat, open like holes so that the boat can sink as a way of dying? Also, on an unrelated note, if you're actually suicidal and they put you in a boat and start sinking, I'm pretty sure at some point some survival instincts would kick in and be like, maybe we shouldn't sit in the bottom of this boat and let ourselves drown. It just seems
they say that like people who jump off bridges, like while they're falling, they immediately regret it. You know, just that type of instinct. And she like that type of thing. Yeah.
Your body doesn't really want you to die.
We can just excuse it. It was the 40s. So yeah.
I mean, it does definitely feel like on some level it's
technically the 30s actually. It was probably made in 39. So
well, yeah, the book is pretty. Place before. I thought it took place even in an older time.
Does it? I don't know if it's ever given.
I'm just
not ever said like.
It does feel like a little bit like they were just looking at this and going, "Oh, she's a woman. Oh, she's probably emotional and decided to drown herself in a boat." Yeah. Like they didn't. I feel like they would have, if it was a male subject, they probably would not have. They would have thought more critically about the suicide by putting yourself in a boat that sinks.
I like the one guy's defense, the like boat keeper's defense of why she didn't kill herself, and she's just, it would never happen. She's a super sailor. She's the best sailor I've ever seen. There's no way she could die in a boat. So we now know Rebecca is a super sailor, and that is definitely will be upheld in court that she did not die in an accident.
But like Rebecca, like when about the whole doctor scene, when the doctor reveals that she has cancer and it's like you have a couple months to live, Rebecca like is on like some CSI Miami shit. She's like, oh, it won't be that long. Like why are you dropping one line into just your random doctor like that? I mean, yeah. And also like the dude, their favorite cousin, just let that line go. Like I feel like he could have easily turned around and be like, see, she thought that the husband would kill her, like blah blah blah. But that apparently confirmed it was a suicide. But yeah, it was the 30s. That's what you say.
And then I guess the final reveal from this is that Maxine believes Rebecca was trying to provoke him to kill her because she wanted to ruin his life in death, which is incidentally sort of what happened anyway, even though he got away with her murder.
Yeah, it's basically explaining the whole atmosphere of the movie before that. This was all planned for her to have this, shadow of everything that would happen in Mandarin Play. It was all, planned in a way.
Absolutely. It is weird.
I do think that this ending is probably, from my understanding, I never read the book because I'm a Philistine, but my understanding of the book and I think the remake is that I think this ending or is more like the whole second half of the story, that the court case and the mystery of finding out did he kill her or not is a bigger portion. I think Alfred Hitchcock just like really didn't care about that part. He was more into the gothic atmosphere and the metaphorical ghost part of it, that he's just like, I guess I have to give the plot now, so he just like rushes it in the last 10 minutes of the movie to deliver the story that's part of it. But it's definitely rushed.
It is interesting, though, that the cousin is like, hey, I'm going to prove that she was murdered by admitting that I had an incestual relationship out of wedlock with my cousin. It's a weird self-incrimination.
I don't think he is her cousin. This is what I'm saying. I think that was a cover. That's what he said, so he can just be like, yeah, I'm allowed to
because it was Dan who just said it, right?
No, he's her first. He's her first cousin.
Give me the proof. Show me the family tree. Show me the genetics.
In the book, he's her first cousin. In the movie, he's listed as her first cousin. That's not a name. It's the actual thing.
Not even second cousin?
No, they went...
Rebecca was a freak, man.
Rebecca, clearly mentally deranged and messed up poor Maxim for quite a while, even though he sort of did murder her and then
do a terrible thing. Like Jack Fontaine. Like, what the fuck? Like,
it is weird that the guy who commits murder gets to burn his crappy old house and probably make money out of it and gets Sean Fontaine.
he's like, yes, I hit her, I struck her, and then she fell. And Joe Fontaine's like, oh, so it wasn't your fault. That's okay. As long as you didn't physically push her into that part where she hit her head, it's okay. It's like you just got to ignore the part where he just struck his wife, and like also you're believing it just straight up. Like if he was capable of hitting his wife, I'm sure he'd be capable of killing her if he really wanted to. But Joan Fontaine does what Joan Fontaine does. So.
It's like her super innocence of just being like, she's looking for any opportunity to say, oh, it wasn't him. Oh, it was her. Like she's looking for any reason to not believe the worst. Like she thinks the worst initially, and then she spends the rest of the time trying to find any explanation that makes it not be the worst thing.
She came in with the clutch fainting sequence in the courthouse though. Everyone was looking at Maxim, and then she's like, "I gotta pull some shit." And she fainted, and all of a sudden the attention was on her. So what a wife, man! What a wife!
Absolutely. Yeah. So, a couple quick things we should mention. This is, of course, kind of the one Alfred Hitchcock movie that receives awards acclaim. So this won Best Picture and Best Cinematography. Hitchcock was nominated for Best Director, but did not win. It's kind of interesting, to be honest, that Rebecca is the one movie.
I think it makes sense just because of what the Oscars tend to go for, which is it's a romance. It's a lot more sweeping. It has, a very atmospheric kind of like not an epic movie, but kind of has an epic feel to it. It's not this plot-based genre movie that, he became so famous for before that. It's hard for them to get awards. This is more or less a serious, version of what a Hitchcock movie could be.
Yeah. I mean, it also does, I guess, give us an indication that Alfred Hitchcock, for whatever acclaim he has now as one of the greats of cinema history, was very much popular cinema back in the 1930s, 40s, and 50s, and even to the 60s. Like, his movies were popular mystery movies. These were basically the movie version of the airplane novel you would get, which would have some attractive people and some romance and some action and then like a good mystery. Like, he was making popular movies. In some ways, when I think of Hitchcock, I always think of Dickens and the idea that these people are highly critically acclaimed now, but in the time when they were creating their art, they were just writing it for everyone to be enjoyed by the masses. And it's just kind of interesting to watch how they're looked at, how much that has changed over time.
I sort of think that's like what David Fincher has been in the last 20 years. He makes very populist movies, like sort of Gone Girl, that's very accessible to the mainstream, Social Network, which is a bit different from Hitchcock. But like Zodiac, that's a mystery thriller. Panic Room, a mystery thriller. Seven, it's not exactly mainstream, but like The Game is pretty mainstream. It's a mystery thriller. Like I think David Fincher has a lot of those tendencies of just making a popular genre movie that is accessible to a lot of people, and doesn't really get the awards. Like The Social Network is basically Fincher's, I guess probably Benjamin Button is Hitchcock's Rebecca in terms of like the type of movie Oscars give.
Yeah, as in a great movie, one of his best movies, just like Rebecca is one of Hitchcock's best movies. I agree.
I can confidently say you will not be seeing Benjamin Button on this podcast, even though I'm nothing.
Wait, that is not you on it. I will now promise you that we will not talk about Benjamin Button.
I'm not talking about Benjamin Button.
I will do my one-man app, and I will do it backwards.
Just super quick, audience, if you would like to see Benjamin Button, we will be covering the entire Piranha franchise on one month. We will be covering the entire Lake Placid franchise on 1 month, and the entire Anaconda franchise on 1 month for Zack to get his Benjamin Button.
I will give you that so I can do an episode on Benny Button called by its proper name. Benny Butt.
Do not talk about Benjamin. Actually, interesting enough, I think Rebecca was really interesting the second time, because the first time I watched Rebecca, it was like the 7th or 8th Hitchcock movie I'd ever seen. I was watching it after a bunch of like the Cary Grant, James Stewart ones. And I found this movie like really cold and not as good as I thought I was going to like it. And I think on rewatch, I liked it a lot more because
how old were you?
Maybe 15 or 16?
8.
Okay.
No, but it's just interesting because I think the first time I watched it, I came into it with this mindset of what an Alfred Hitchcock movie is: charming Cary Grant or charming James Stewart in, they're more like heroes, upbeat characters. And I think coming into this was very much different. But I think on second watch, the complexities of this film and like the real craft really shown through in a way that I had not noticed the first time. So I was really glad I got to rewatch this. I would like to ask Zach, any final thoughts on Rebecca?
Okay. Yeah. One, there's a great chicken. Well, you corrected me before the show. It's not wings. It is chicken legs. But at the end, this is how you know the cousin's a jackass, because he's just out there eating chicken legs in a nice car like a heathen. It was a badass scene. You own that. That's how you control a conversation. It's like, you think you're gonna have, any say in what's about to happen? No, because I'm gonna eat chicken wings and I'm dominating everything. That's how I put my authority in place in my classroom. Is I eat chicken wings while I start my class, and no one's gonna say anything to me. Also, Laurence Olivier's hair is real great, and I did cry during this movie, just like Michael cries at the end of Forrest Gump, mainly reminiscing about my past thick hair and what's become. It could have been Laurence Olivier if I just maintained that wonderful dew on top.
Zach, can I ask an important question?
Is it about my balding?
No, it's about your chicken eating. Yeah. When you eat the chicken in the classroom, do you throw the bones at the children, on the floor, or out the nearest window?
No, I just drop them. Like, as soon as the last meat goes, I just drop it, and then I tell kids, clean up at the end of class.
He also gets them to like lick his fingers.
Okay, no, that's gonna get me fired if that one gets caught.
Zach Ford does not actually eat chicken. This is all a joke. Please don't fire him. He needs a job.
No, I don't eat chicken wings. I just eat live chickens in golf class. Please get me right.
This is biology class.
Language arts. We were talking about Rebecca and language arts, and I'm just gonna reenact it by eating chicken wings inside of an old classic car brought to the classroom.
All right. Anything else?
No, nothing I say matters in this world anymore. Go to Michael.
You did have your children came up with a uniquely interesting take on Wizard of Oz, which
oh yeah, I was very impressed by this. It was very insightful. And just I didn't come up with myself, but that Dorothy is really the villain and the bad guy and probably should go to jail the whole time, because she not only murders a witch but then steals that bitch's shoes. She takes the shoes off of the woman she murdered as her own. That's to
be honest, this does sort of feel like their version of the Jenny is the villain of Forrest Gump.
No, she steals the woman's shoes.
She gets sent to a magical land without getting a choice.
Wait, you're saying that you would be upset if you got sent to a magical land? She got lucky to learn about life by watching Talking Lions and Tin Man. I wish I could go to Oz. What are you saying? That's not a punishment.
The first witch she kills is accidental. She's in a house that's flying in a hurricane.
Okay, so have some empathy. Bury her. You don't take her damn shoes. You're gonna see a dead man on the street. You're gonna take his shoes.
Lift the house off her.
Dude, remember the legs shrivel up and disappear. The witch gets rid of her. Your students didn't read the book.
They read the book. I'm not even convinced they saw the movie. They just know that they're shoes. It started by Wizard of Oz. There's something about slippers, right? That's what the first kid said.
Sort of.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on.
When are we having the spin-off show with the students? So you can fucking
we'll live stream from my class.
I'll Skype in.
On Zoom.
Yeah,
fucking kids.
Michael Campbell hates children. All right, Mr. Campbell, our esteemed guest. Final thoughts on the film, Rebecca?
Yeah, it was good. I really liked the second half more than the first half. I also, may have watched it at 3 a.m. in the morning, a couple of hours ago. I was pretty tired, so I might actually rewatch it soon, just to, because I sort of have no idea what happened.
Thank you for doing the thoughtful watch after we take the podcast, Jackass. Last time you were on the show, you lose your production duties.
I mean, I could think of nothing more appropriate for this show.
At least you spoke, and that's the best we're going to get out of you.
I'm glad I watched it. Like you said, it was Hitchcock's Best Picture winner. His prestigious movie, but it's really good, and I can die now knowing that I've seen Rebecca.
Hey,
good movie.
By the way, it's November in America, and we're all basically dying right now, so we're good. Yeah,
big fun. We're not talking about that. Rebecca, really good movie. Really, really good movie. Enjoyed a lot on rewatch. Let's move on to 1940s Hitchcock. I'm going to do a quick rundown of the movies from the 1940s, and then we can talk about any of them any of us have seen. This is kind of Hitchcock's big explosion. He comes to America in 1940 with Rebecca. He does Foreign Correspondent the same year. Then he does Mr. and Mrs. Smith, 1941. Does not seem to be related to the Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie film. Suspicion, 1941 as well. Saboteur, 1942. Shadow of a Doubt, 1943. Lifeboat, 1944. Spellbound, 1945. Notorious, 1946. The Parroting Case, 1947. Rope in 1948. And Under Capricorn in 1949. It's kind of insane that you would make one movie or more a year for an entire decade. That's just really prolific and kind of impressive.
That's how like everyone was in the 40s, though. They just like needed constant production.
No, but also taking into account the quality of these films, there are quite a lot of really excellent films on that list. I know for one, I really like Shadow of a Doubt, which is this film where Teresa Wright from Best Years of Our Lives plays Joseph Cotton's niece, and throughout the film,
named Charlie, I believe. Yeah.
Yes, realizes that her uncle realizes her uncle, who is her favorite uncle, may not be as nice of a person as she would like to think he is.
Also, she's a different favorite uncle than Rebecca's favorite cousin. We'll just say that. Yeah.
Yes, there is no incest in Shadow of a Doubt. Just so we're clear. So if you have an incest meter that does not allow you to watch films, Shadow of the Doubt is okay. And then Lifeboat, really good. Lifeboat's a really fun, like, in
Is there no incest in Lifeboat? Let's do this with this whole filmography, please.
I don't think there are incest in any of these movies. I have seen all of these but Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Under Capricorn.
I said we start our own website like version of like, does the dog die? Like, is there incest in this?
So our version of the Knocked Up website, but we're just rating yes or no incest category. I mean, I can see my house getting raided after creating that website. Michael, these movies from the 1940s besides Rebecca, have you seen any of them? And do you have any thoughts on this decade for Hitchcock?
I've seen Saboteur, Shadow of a Doubt, Rope. What other ones were there? Hold on, give me a second. I forgot the others. I think that might be it from the 40s. It's just fast enough. Okay. Yeah, those are the only ones from the 40s I've seen. I do want to see Under Capricorn at the library. I do want to see like Spellbound and Notorious. I just haven't really found them yet. But I like Saboteur. That's a nice sort of thriller. Have any of you seen it?
Yeah, Saboteur is
it's a good thriller.
And in some ways I would consider it like lesser Hitchcock, which is not necessarily an insult to the film and more just a statement about how good of a director he is overall.
Yeah. And it's like there's not really any big stars in the movie, so I think it sort of gets a bit not as talked about as much. Like you said, Shadow of Doubt, that's a really good one. Some really great performances in that. And Rope is just a classic gay icon movie. So yeah.
Yeah, and a really good like one taker, kind of the one taker before that with a really cool thing you wanted to brag about as you made an Oscar push.
His first I think it's his first movie in color, right? So that's
it might be. Yeah.
In film history.
Yeah, absolutely. Zach, what about these movies? What do you think about this decade of Hitchcock?
Yeah, I've seen about half of them, and so Notorious is the one I was pushing to actually do for the show. That is one of my favorite Hitchcock movies. What do I remember about it? I seen it 3 years ago. Very little. I don't know. So I remember really loving it and really loving Ingrid Bergman in it. The three of the other ones I've seen are like near the bottom of my favorite Hitchcocks. Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Suspicion. I find just they're very light movies, but also just kind of corny. And I think Suspicion's a little better the second time I watched it, but don't really hit as deeply as a lot of the other Hitchcocks. And Rope, I am just extremely bored by, and maybe because I missed the gay combo part of it. I need to view it for the gay lens, and then I'll be all about Rope.
I think this decade in some ways is. The 1930s is Hitchcock really trying, like, it's just a very weird decade because you can't find a lot of Hitchcock's work. It's hard to find a lot of those movies. A lot of them are very low quality because he's working with really small budgets in Britain. In this one, he kind of moves to the US. He he starts doing what you think of
with
Hitchcock.
stars and everything.
He starts getting his stars. Like you can look at the Suspicion, Shadow of a Doubt, Spellbound, Notorious, Rope. He is starting to get his Stewarts and his Grants. He's also starting to get his higher level famed female stars for his career. It is really the 1950s in some ways where he kind of explodes. That's where he makes, in the 50s and 60s, or where he makes some of like his most acclaimed films. I think there's some really good work in here. I think that the Parodying Case is like shockingly underseen and also like really, really good.
That's Peck, right?
I believe so. Yeah, that's really good. I don't like Spellbound as much as some of the people. Some people who love that. I like that a little bit. Shadow of Doubt, Lifeboat are really good. I think this is just a really cool decade. I think this is one of the joys of Alfred Hitchcock is you could go to literally any decade of his film career and pick 3 or 4 movies to watch, and you'll probably have a really good time watching them. Even if you don't get the best 3 movies, like you could go to this list and get a Saboteur and a Foreign Correspondent in the Parodying Case, which are maybe not the best 3 movies here, and you'd still have a really good time watching them. Alfred Hitchcock is
Saboteur is a classic Man on the Run thriller that you can. It's not very long. It's pretty short. Some iconic scenes, and like that doesn't really get talked about at all. You're like,
absolutely. Like yeah, I mean that's another great thing about Hitchcock. His movies are really short. They're really easy to watch. They're mysteries. It's really easy to get engaged in them. They introduce the mystery in the first 10 to 15 minutes of every movie. They don't really make you wait that long. Hitchcock is he's wonderful, simple mystery storytelling with really high quality. And you watch him work and you're like, oh yeah, the guy who's making these movies is so much better than the person you'd think would be making this type of movie would be.
Yeah.
So I think, anyone have anything else to say about 1940s Hitchcock? Or we all talked out.
All good. So moving into the future of the 1940s.
All right. Well, I would like to thank Michael Campbell, our biggest fan, and an awesome guest host today. We're wonderful and glad to have you. We will definitely try to have you back.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. We'll have to read more of your emails if they come through. Next week.
We'll get an email from someone else. Where do you email it? I don't know. I don't know why Michael has Lucas's email. He does.
It's not Lucas's email, Zach. The podcast has an email.
No, we don't.
It's in the description of every episode.
Oh, wait, really? Is it connected to StreamYard?
No, I haven't.
Did you create an email for our podcast?
It was literally the first episode.
The podcast has had its own Twitter and its own email since the first episode.
Wait, we have our own Twitter?
This is going to go well with my next email that you will read. It's gonna blend in nicely. Lucas knows what I'm talking about.
Lucas
need to hire a social media manager.
No, we're good. We don't have enough views right now to hire a social media manager.
Michael, you're in charge of our social media now. Congratulations.
Michael,
hell yeah.
As early watchers of the show will know, Michael was the producer, and then we didn't pay him, so he quit. But he has agreed to come on occasionally as a guest to talk about movies he likes. But with all that, thank you, Michael. Thank you, Zach. We will be back next week
when with Benjamin Button.
No, because no one wants to hear that. And we'll be talking the 1950s Hitchcock and focusing on the film The Wrong Man, which I think is wonderful and underseen. But with that, thank you, Zach. Thank you, Michael. I have been Lucas. You know who these two guys are, and we will see you next week.